I would say that the biggest challenge right now is to stay engaged with the customer. If you were to ask that question of most other practitioners or regulators or a central bank governor, they would talk about capital, liquidity, corporate governance, all these good things which are being focused on in the light of the crash, after the crash. Now, they're all true, that's all true. Basel III, the new regulatory regime that's being implemented after the crisis of 2008, is very strong on higher capital requirements for banks, a more strict or more robust funding and liquidity regime, and more strict corporate governance models. Well, that's not so much Basel III, but that's what regulators are talking about. To me, these are necessary but not sufficient. Every bank has got to make sure that they adhere to the principles required, whether it's by the regulator or by their national jurisdiction or by the central banks or by Basel III. But beyond that, because banking is going to remain very competitive for the foreseeable future, for the next 5-10 years, the key challenge is to remain engaged with the customer, i.e. deliver genuine customer satisfaction, whether it's the retail customer, the corporate customer, the wholesale, another bank, a correspondent bank, whatever your customer base, whatever your franchise, the key thing is to remain engaged and deliver genuine customer satisfaction. And that's a cultural thing as much as a technical or a regulatory thing. The three priorities, I would say, are in the first instance, monitor your risk exposures, your key metrics, and that's necessary but not sufficient. The second one would be to have a robust funding model in place so that you are liquid or able to maintain liquidity and rollover funding throughout the business cycle, through good times and bads. And then the third priority, and I would say the most important of all those three, is to know your risk, or even better still, know your expertise. Banks should only engage in activities and in areas and businesses that they have a genuine ability to deliver value in. So, for example, if you are very good in a certain area, you shouldn't think, oh, I can expand that into another jurisdiction or overseas or an emerging market just because it happens to be banking. It's not necessarily within your expertise or your area of shareholder value added. So the key thing is to maintain an ability to know exactly what your risk is, that's manage your risk exposures and monitor them and remain within what is tolerable for you. But really beyond the main things, just monitoring metrics and being aware of what your exposures are, it's to know that you're only engaging in business that you have genuine value-added capability in. And I would say if you're doing that, you should be able to stay out of trouble on the risk side because you know exactly what it is you're always getting into. The future of banking would probably be more emphasis on first customer engagement and customer satisfaction, but also more specific niche players. I think there will always be large banks and indeed too big to fail banks because that's what we have now. But going forward, the competitive environment is such that there will always be a room for a niche player who is able to deliver genuine customer satisfaction to his or to its franchise. So the future of banking, beyond Basel III, beyond being able to maintain required capital levels and required funding models, is to make sure that one is engaging with the customer. Now, I've said that before, and I actually think that's the most important thing. Possibly to a point, to an extent, banks, or certain banks, lost sight of that pre-crash, when the emphasis was more on market share, P&L generation, asset growth, growth by acquisition, all these sorts of things, which are always going to be with us in a corporate environment, in a capitalist market. But I think for banks especially, because the product is so commoditized and because the competition is so intense, really it's about maintaining customer focus and customer engagement. And that would probably be what the business model looks like going forward. Niche players, more small players, more focused players, and probably a reining in amongst bigger players, reining in of their operations, bringing back and concentrating on areas that they are still able to maintain value added in. And that's probably what we're looking at in the future of banking post the crash.